and some want to be Trinetri, Trikaldarshi, and Purushottam. These are titles that Baba gives us, and they're also purposes and aims, why we are here. Why are you here? Have you identified? So today, especially Purushottam, one of the descriptions of a deity is Maryada Purushottam. And this is called Purushottam Sangam Yuga. So the essence, sweet children, the confluence age is the most elevated of all. By studying here, you can become the most elevated beings for 21 births. And the question, what faith should you have firmly for internal happiness? And the answer is, the first faith is that you were the masters of the world and you were very wealthy. Is that good? So many BKs are interested in wealth, but there are so many who are completely detached from wealth. Are you such? Detached from wealth? Good relationship with wealth is connected with being detached. If you are detached, it will follow you like a shadow. If you are attached, it will give you the same trouble as if you are attached to a human being. Then the other thing is, only you have taken the full 84 births. Not many BKs are worried about how many births they take. I say, okay, 84. But Daddy Janki used to say with a lot of interest that I'm sure that I take the full 84 birth. That means I'm sure I come right at the beginning. Because many will come after 82, 81, 80, 79 births. But full 84 births means there is no aspect of the cycle that you do not experience personally. All of it is in your soul. So Baba has now come once again to give us the sovereignty of the world. We have now become the knowers of the three aspects of time, Trikaldarshi, knowers or seers. It's actually seers, not knowers. There's a difference. And we have come to know the beginning, middle, and end of creation from the Father, the Creator. When you have such faith, then you have inner happiness. And the song is, show the path to the blind, O God. Om Shanti. Did you children hear the line of the song? Baba now comes and shows you such a good path to make you into the most elevated beings, Purushottam. There are many different types of colleges and universities in the world where people study to get a position. Some become clerks, some become magistrates, others may be the Chief Justice. People attain a high status. However, all of that is a high status of the Iron Age. And Baba comes and enables you to attain a high status in the Golden Age. This is the confluence age. You have to become the most elevated Purushottam in this age. whatever knowledge people study, it is to elevate themselves. So Baba wants us to have an interest in position, power, influence, all these things that people desire. So one is to desire them for making yourself feel good, but the other is to desire them because it gives you a feeling of purposefulness in life, because then you can do something worthwhile. So this is spiritual knowledge for the future. This confluence age is the most elevated age. Wherever you mention the confluence age in the pictures, you must also write Purushottam, not just Sangamyug, but Purushottam. It is the time when a human being can become elevated or evolved. Everything is raised to a higher level. And you know how elevated Lakshmi and Narayan are. So their jewelry and costumes are definitely very beautiful. So you should make such pictures also. Why do people want a lot of money? So that they can have nice things, beautiful house, art, gardens, transportation, fancy. So only Baba would give directions. Some children continue to tour the cities, so they should think about what kind of attractive pictures to make, which would create a great impact with their splendor. And people like to go to art exhibitions. So BK art is fairly basic. But if you look at some other religions and spiritual organizations, by the time some of them get to have a lot of VIPs and money, then they start to make very beautiful art to represent their beliefs and buildings. So keep it in your intellect throughout the day that you are becoming the most elevated beings of all. And who is making you this? The highest Father of all. The highest Shrimat of all is from the one Father. So Shrimat, there's only one Shrimat. The Father tells you that Shri means elevated. So the title Shri should be given only to deities, because Shri means pure. So nowadays everybody is Shri, but it shouldn't be for them. Souls and the bodies of deities are both pure, and they take pure birth. Here, no one takes birth through purity. And the Sikhs mention the dirty, impure clothes, and they call on God to wash them. So Baba comes and washes the dirty, impure clothes. That means your costume, your body is impure. And he changes the people from ordinary, impure humans into deities. Deities are not born through vice. However, people question how the world could continue without lust. The Father explains there is no child born through vice in heaven. You students know that you have come here to become Narayan from ordinary people. We will attain the kingdom through this Raj Yoga. And if someone fails, then he will be part of the Moon dynasty. Your battle is with Ravan, but no one in the world knows that Ravan is their old enemy. People do not know the meaning of Ravan, nor what the 10 heads represent. You can't really say for Ravan that he's a he or a she if he has 10 male heads and 10 female heads. Your children know that you become corrupted when the vices come. In the Golden Age, everyone is elevated. So in the translation, they use elevated to refer to lots of different words. So one is Purushottam, but then in this case, it's Sresht. So Sresht also means high, elevated, and Brasht is corrupt, so the opposite of corrupt. So the father says at this time, everyone has Tamil Pradhan intellects. They're all in darkness and they cannot understand spiritual matters. It is also remembered that everyone is sleeping in the sleep of Kumbhakarna and that they will awaken when the fire starts. You awaken everyone a lot, you try to wake them up, yet they go back to sleep. You make so much effort at the fairs and gatherings, but look how many emerge from there. Just a handful out of multi-millions. As you make further progress, there will be a lot of growth and people's intellects will open. The other religions have been old for a long time, and because of this, they have expanded. This is your small, old tree. It's new, but he says old, the original. Those people eat meat and drink alcohol, and they indulge in vice. There is a saying that good company takes you across and bad company drowns you. The company of the truth is the company of the one Father. But people do not know which company will take them across. So they sing the song, "O boatman, take my boat across. O master of the garden, change us from thorns into flowers. Take us beyond this forest of thorns. You are to become flowers here. So imbibe divine virtues, become the most elevated beings. So your food and drink should be very pure." So one of the aims of this practice is Jivan Mukti. So if you want to be a Jivan Mukta, a deity, then you have to develop all the deity ways. So whatever is impure is not offered to deities. So you should also not eat those things. Vegetables also may be sato, rajo, and tamo. So onions are supposed to be tamo, right? Onions and garlic, that's why we don't have them. Some people don't like daikon radishes. And some people don't like pumpkins. And this is because instead of sacrificing goats, they sacrifice pumpkins. And then they say, well, that means a pumpkin is equivalent to meat. So actually, it's not, but some people think like that. What is a very sato vegetable? It's supposed to be mung beans. Mung beans are supposed to be very sato, yeah. So nowadays, people are poor. Also, according to Ayurveda, the tomatoes, aubergines, and potatoes, they're not so good. And according to the Jains, anything that grows underground, a root vegetable, is not okay. So anyway, you have to get what you get. Nowadays, people are poor, and it is the poor ones who will take the knowledge. Wealthy people waste their money. It is very bad to watch films. And it was written in a newspaper too, that to go to watch films means to go to hell. Well, because films are all about lust and violence and stuff like that. So those ones he thinks is not good for you. The greater a person is, the worse his activities are. At this time, this is an absolute brothel. So it's how the world is. The Father comes and makes everything from Vaishale to Shivale. Everything depends on purity. If there is purity, there will also be peace and prosperity. No one in the kingdom of Ravan can be pure. And the question of war applies here. You gain victory over Ravan through the power of yoga. There are many temples here, but no one knows the biography of the deities in the temples. So go to a temple of Shiva and ask them to tell you the biography of Shiva, and they will not be able to tell you anything. Among you too, you have knowledge number-wise according to your efforts. There are the highest, the middle level, and the lowest. Everything depends on how you imbibe the study. So it all depends on your understanding of the meaning of education. Some people just learn something by heart, but they don't know what it means. So that's called parrots. The soul says, I will become Narayan from an ordinary man. I teach everyone Raj Yoga, Shri Baba says, everyone. Yet, according to the effort each one makes, you become the most elevated, middle level, or the lowest. And this is why you children should pay a lot of attention to studying this knowledge. Good Shiva is speaking, and he says, all your sins will be burned in the fire of yoga, and you will become Sato Pradhan. So, what is a sin? Is it a physical object? Not really, right? What is a sin? It's an energy in the soul. It's pressure and weight, and it prevents you from being in contact with God. And so you can't burn it like you burn a physical object, can you? Because it's not a physical object. So people use fire to deactivate things. Like if a seed is burnt, it won't grow. And if metal is put in fire, then only the pure metal, the gold, remains. So this is all about purification. Not that your sins will go away, but your soul will be purified from the pollution and corruption of the effect of negative karma. So children, this is why you must not forget the pilgrimage of remembrance. So if your yoga is not at a high level, then your Iron Age sanskaras will be very active. Ask your heart, I explain knowledge very well at the exhibitions, but do I stay on the pilgrimage of remembrance? Because you fail in remembrance, you do not have the stage or the happiness all the time. Your children should keep practicing this subject more. Make such beautiful pictures that anyone who comes reads the writing on them, and they will be able to understand the knowledge. Many people come to see something good, and those who make those pictures, art, they receive prizes. Especially, they make the images of deities to look like antiques and then sell them. So people like that very much, and they will buy them even if they cost a lot. The deities were Satopradhan, and so there is so much respect even for their images. But they do not know that Bharat is the most ancient of all, and the oldest being of all is Shiv Baba. Oldest because he's the first one who comes, and he comes when we're all here already. But people are very confused. You also understand that previously you had degraded intellects, means unable to comprehend these things, because faulty logic and incorrect definitions of concepts. Look what you have now become and what you were. We were the masters of the world, and we were very wealthy. However, there are very few among you whose intellects have faith. So what is the meaning of faith in the intellect, and could you have faith in the mind or not? What is faith? So Baba says, if you had faith in your intellect, you would have inner happiness. You would say, we have taken the full 84 births. Those who study less will receive fewer births. Those who become part of the Sun dynasty must definitely have studied well. This study is so good. Baba, the creator, comes and gives you the knowledge of the beginning, the middle, and the end of creation. You are becoming the seers of the three aspects of time. So ask anyone, do you know the three aspects of time? Do you have the knowledge of all three aspects of time? And then they would say, well, all that is your imagination. What is that? The past, present, and future. People think you don't know the future. And when one person says that this is all your imagination, then the others also begin to say the same. So people are influenced by public opinion to a far greater extent than they are influenced by God. So we have to change that in us. Your intellects now have the knowledge. Intellect is like intelligence. You also know that God is the Father. It is written in the Gita that the form of God is brighter than 1,000 suns. But it is not like that. Baba is very cool. Cool. Shital. He's not cool as in, he's like, he's very intense, but he's not hot. And he comes and makes you children cool also. So cool Shital is like moonlight. And hot is more rajasic, overexcited, shouting, talking loudly, all that stuff. So some BKs are more bright and active, and other BKs are quiet and internalized. So just as Baba is a point of light, souls too are points of light, like fireflies. But fireflies are visible. However, without a divine vision, you cannot see Baba. You know that God is the ocean of knowledge, and you children are also becoming master sons of knowledge. The soul is so tiny, yet all the knowledge is recorded within. It is the soul who listens and the soul who imbibes. The soul explains through the body, and no one else would know how to explain all these things. You too understand everything from the Father, and then you explain to others. Only the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul, is the purifier and the ocean of knowledge. He always has purifier and ocean of knowledge coming together. So there's a connection. Purification. Knowledge is also called a pyre. So knowledge is fire. It will burn you. Krishna cannot be called the purifier or the ocean of knowledge. People call out to the one. They say, "Oh, purifier, come." But they don't call out to Krishna or Ram. So though they say, Patit Pavan Sitaram, but was he really the purifier, the husband of Sita? All of you are devotees, whereas God is just the one. All of you are brides, and I am your bridegroom. I come to decorate you. I come and I give all souls the fruit of their devotion. This study is so important. It makes you into Narayan from ordinary people. You should have so much intoxication. The Father has come to donate the imperishable jewels of knowledge to you. So this is the best donation of all. People go in front of Shiva and ask for their aprons to be filled. So the apron is the intellect. So you now have all the knowledge in your intellects. And you are now at the confluence age. And Shiv Baba is making us into the masters of the land of Vishnu. We are now Brahmins, and then we will become deities. After that, we will become warriors, then merchants, and then Shudras. This is the secret of Hum So Soham. People believe that each soul is the Supreme Soul. And the Father explains how those who are worthy of worship then become worshippers, and how you become Sato Pradhan and you go through the stages of Sato Rajo Tammo. Only you know this secret. These matters have to be imbibed. Once you understand this secret, then you understand that it's not possible for everyone to be God or for God to be omnipresent. So Baba's giving us ammunition because we have to shoot down certain very specific concepts. And this concept of the omnipresence of God is itself omnipresent. And it's there in all the religions now. Such a huge, unlimited kingdom is being established through this study. You are studying for your future 21 births number-wise, according to the efforts you make. Some of you will become kings and queens. Others will become subjects. But whatever your status is, everyone will be happy. Here, everyone experiences sorrow according to their karma. And this is the land of sorrow. That is the land of happiness. Baba now says, children, do not perform any negative karma for which there would have to be punishment. If you do still perform such actions, you will receive a status accordingly. If you study well, you will create your reward for cycle after cycle. You have this knowledge at this time, and then it will disappear. If you do not make effort now, there will be a lot of repentance later. So the Father says, imbibe divine virtues, because otherwise your actions will be sinful. So how does that work? Here, the actions of all people are sinful, negative karma. And no one apart from you knows this, that all people, whatever they do, is pretty much negative karma, the decisions they make. No one can tell you when the God of the Gita came. People say that he came in the Copper Age, and the Vedas and Shastras are created in the Copper Age. They're written down in the Iron Age. Right? And the devilish community, the Asuri Sampradaya, is created in the Copper Age. Children say, Baba, take us away from this world of sin. And that means they are asking for death. And this is why Shiv Baba is called Mahakaleshwar. So the death of death. Those people use the word the immortal throne. This refers to the Sikh temple at Amritsar, where there is a very nice wooden chair, which is called the Akal Takht. So the Akal Takht, the body, is the immortal throne. Why is the body immortal when it dies all the time? Because every time you lose one, you get another one. And it's very difficult to stop the process of reincarnation. And this is why the end of the cycle requires death of all people all at the same time. So they do not understand the meaning of Akal Takht, the immortal throne. Those who become the most elevated also become the lowest. So if you are a deity, you'll go to the highest, and you'll also go to the lowest in the Iron Age. But if you are not a deity, you won't go that high and you won't go that low. And this also applies to the civilization. You children have now understood all the knowledge. Is that right? You understand all the knowledge. This is very wonderful knowledge. No one else can give the knowledge of the beginning, the middle, and the end of creation. Otherwise, what would be the benefit of calling the incorporeal one knowledgeful before he comes and gives knowledge? All souls come down here from the incorporeal world to play their parts. They call out to God, but he does not have a body of his own. All other souls have their own bodies. Therefore, only God is the incorporeal one, permanently incorporeal. The Father says, my name is Shiva, and I enter this one's body and sit in the center of his forehead. And just as souls speak through their organs, so Baba too explains through this one's organs. It is remembered that a wonderful star shines in the center of the forehead. But only you understand the significance of these deep secrets. So what does it mean to be a non-human? Acha, to the sweetest, beloved, long lost and now found children, love, remembrance, and good morning from the mother, the father, Bap Dada. And the spiritual father says namaste to the spiritual children. Spiritual children say namaste to the spiritual father. So the essence for dharana, to make your reward elevated, study well and do not perform negative karma. Secondly, let your food and drink be very pure. Eat only what is offered to the deities and make effort to become Purushottam, the most elevated. And the blessing is, may you be benevolent to all. So there are two words. One is beneficial and one is benevolent. So kalyankari is beneficial. Benevolent is that you would like people to be benefited, and beneficial is that you will do things to make sure that they are benefited. That's the difference between those two. So this word should really be beneficial. So may you be beneficial to all and achieve success in the service you do with your renunciation and tapasya. Just as you can see physical fire from a distance, in the same way, the shining of your renunciation and tapasya, the light, will attract everyone from a distance. What kind of light do you get from someone's renunciation and tapasya? It's a vibration. Huh? Along with being a server, also be a renunciate and a tapasvi. Instant, practical fruit will then be seen from the service you do. A renunciate means that your old thoughts and sanskaras would not be visible. Visible means discernible. A tapasvi means that nothing is discernible except the consciousness of your intellect and your soul conscious form. So benefit for every soul should be merged in all thoughts that you create, and then you will be called beneficial to all. So, Kalyan. It says, let benefit for every soul be merged in whatever thought you create. So that means the thoughts you create should be for the benefit of others. Then you would be called beneficial to all. You see, this is a Latin root word, benevolent and beneficial. So this word BOL means you want, And FIC means you do. That's the difference. And it seems to me that Baba doesn't want you to just think it's a nice idea if everybody is benefited. He wants you to actually do something to make that happen. So that's why it's better. And the slogan is, in order to go beyond the consciousness of bodies, do not look at the image, the form, but look at the living being, the soul, and the character. It's very important in Gyan to be a good judge of character so that you know who is what. And you cannot tell who is what by how they look or by the job they have, but it's much deeper than that. Who should you trust? Who can you trust? They say trust in God, but you're putting the Murli up on the screen. So the image means the physical body. People use the word image for the persona, how people perceive them. And so there are many people who help important people to make their image good. So your look, your tie, your suit, your shoes, all this stuff. And so that's how you look. And then the character is what you do. And one of the things that happens when somebody becomes very important is they get corrupted. And they start to desire a lot of money, and they acquire money through their political positions at the expense of other people. And so this is how they get corrupted. And also they tend to get a lot of intimate relationships all over the place. So they get corrupted with that as well. And so this is one of the things that you see in the world today, that people desire political power because they want to get a lot of money and property and all this stuff. And so therefore, instead of providing to the people, they take from the people. And you see that the taxation is more for the people who have middle level of income, and the people who have a very high income, they're the ones who take advantage of everybody else. And this creates inequity. And when the gap between the wealthy and the poor reaches a certain level, then you get war. And we're very close to that level at the moment. And so according to the calculation of what are the circumstances that create war, we have it full on. And so we have to be careful about this. Because once war starts, then wherever you happen to be, you're stuck there. And there's no safety. So that's the nature of war. People were hoping that there wouldn't be any war, but there are many wars happening right now, but they don't come on the news. And So what people thought they would do is get the wars to be fought in other places. And so then they can say there isn't any war because you can't see it here. But that lasts only for a little while. Then it starts to come close and then it takes over. So let's have a few moments of silence and then see if there's any things we should talk about. I was going to talk about sin. Well, Baba said in the Murli that all the karma everyone does at this time is negative karma. And that is so because people are motivated by responding to what they perceive through sense perception. And they respond as a reaction to what they see and hear. But also the conventional morality is based on the idea that everyone is a body. And so all of the social rules and laws and so on are based on their perception of the value of the body. So what you can see in the legal system and the social system is that on the whole, there's not much value for women and children. And so any crime against a woman or a child is the punishment that you get is very slight. And they have a lot of value for property. And so if you steal something, you will get a lot of punishment for that. But if you damage a woman, you'll get like some small thing. You will have ruined her life, but nobody really cares. So, and this is based on the idea that people are objects. And if you would, there are somewhere internet sites where you can buy body parts, because there are some people who need a transplant of this or that. And so there are people who trade in body parts. Like somebody needs a new kidney or a new heart. And there are even people who get killed so that their organs can be taken and sold. And so you've got the price list for all those things. And so the actual resale value of the body parts of a human being, if you get all of it, is quite a lot of money. But if you just have a human being who's not considered as body parts, but just a person, it doesn't have any value. So it's a funny thing how people function. But in spirituality, there is a lot of value for the being. And this is because the being is called real. And the body is called unreal because it deteriorates. Whereas the being, although it deteriorates, it doesn't stop existing as an individual, is immortal. And if you would really know this, and you would operate your country, your legal system on the basis of this, then you would do it very differently. And so because of these things, these ideas, these concepts, and also because people are spiritually weak, so pretty much everything they do becomes a negative karma. And that's how. And so Baba is teaching us to be those who are Jivan Muktas. And the main story of the person who is liberated in life is King Janak. And so he wanted to know what Jivan Mukti is. And so he had a dream. You know the story of the dream, where he saw 2 mice or rats who were gnawing at a branch and that he was hanging on to. He in his dream, he was riding a horse, and then all of a sudden the horse flew into the sky and he got scared. So he jumped off the horse and he landed in this tree. But these 2 rats were biting away at the branch and it was going to fall down. And he looked down where this branch was going to drop him, and there were crocodiles, alligators down below. So he thought of escaping by going up, and he looked up and he saw a snake coming down to get him. So he didn't have very much time because the branch was almost all bitten through. So he saw a woman, an elderly woman who was walking along, and he said, give me your sari so that I can get out of my predicament. But if he would do that, then she would have to strip so that he would get her sari, and that would not be good for her, be very good for him. So she said, on condition that you get married with me. He said, no, I don't want to do that. You're an old woman. Then he woke up. And so he was very disturbed by this dream, that what's going on here. So he asked everyone in his kingdom, anyone can interpret my dream, I will give you a good reward. So in his kingdom, there were a lot of fancy courtiers and they all offered interpretations, but he didn't buy any of it. And then there came a person to the court whose name was Ashtavakra. And he was, his body was crooked in 8 different places. So for the people, the guards wouldn't let him into the court because he was so ugly. And so people consider the intellectual prowess of a person as determined by their physical beauty, which is obviously not connected, but that's how they function. And so he protested, and he finally caused enough trouble for himself to get in. And he went to the king and said, I can interpret your dream. And the king said, okay, let's hear about what you have to say. And he said, but you're sitting in a court where there are only chamar. Chamar is the Shudras who work with leather. So the king was very shocked that all his noblemen are Shudras. And he said, why are you calling them chamar? He said, well, all they can see is skin. And the king said, oh, you're right, they're right, that's absolutely right. Because he was ugly, so they didn't like him because of his physical body. So he said, you must get rid of all these chamar in your court, they don't belong here. And so he said, yeah, absolutely right. And he made them all get out. And he said, okay, now tell me the dream. So Ashtavakra said, okay, these 2 rats, the white one and the black one, they refer to time. So your life is running out because it's biting away. And the alligators and the snake refer to your fears. Your fear of violence, your fear of desires, and but they're coming to get you. They will get you. So you think that the way out is to take advantage of the woman. Desire. Snake is lust. Crocodile is pain, fears. And so the woman, he wants to use the woman for his own selfish reasons. So that is how the society functions. Exploitation. Not very good, not very spiritual. So he said, oh my God, what do I do? So he said, you have to surrender. You have to surrender your whole kingdom to me. And you have to do what I say. So he said, okay, I'll do that. So then Ashtavakra said, okay, get your horse and get on it. So he got the horse and he started to get on, and then he put one foot up and then he put the second foot. And Ashtavakra said, who told you to put your second foot? And, well, you start, but then you have to complete. So this is a reference that you can actually only have Jivan Mukti when you do every karma according to God's directions. And so this is the story of the person who has Jivan Mukti, means the person who is not operating on the basis of desire, fear, and this way of using people for your personal advantage. Because the whole society is based on those three things. And that's why people are in trouble. So Jivan Mukti in this life, in the confluence age, is all about doing your karma on the basis of Baba's directions. And so he said in the Murli today about food, your food has to be clean. Your interaction with people has to be not based on violence or lust. And you have to be soul conscious. But more than anything, there has to be attention on the subject of yoga. Because just knowledge without yoga is insufficient and hollow. So then people are thinking about, what do we have to do to intensify the yoga? And most people are thinking that, okay, the only way to intensify your yoga is to have bhattis. So many BKs do different types of bhattis. And the problem is that, okay, you sit down in meditation, you make a gathering, or you have a Zoom bhatti, or lots of different types of bhattis are there. But it doesn't work so well because you're practicing only at the time when you're doing that bhatti. But then the time when you're not doing the bhatti, you go back to your normal way of being. And so therefore there's not really progress. So what Brahma Baba used to get the BKs to do in the very beginning is to make sure that the different things they had to do were done in soul conscious stage. And then also, like, for example, there was one story of Dadi Janki that she told about how she was heating up some milk, and it boiled over, because when milk boils, it rises up and goes over. So you have to be very attentive. And so Baba said, it boiled over because your yoga was not right. And so then she began to understand that yoga is not sitting in meditation. It is being attentive at every step, so that what you do is accurate. And then in the Gita, it mentions that the definition of yoga is skill in action. And so it's very important to sit in meditation, but that doesn't give you skill in action. So it's very important to raise the level of yoga by practicing to be with Baba while talking, while interacting, because then you can really have correct action. And that is the meaning of karma yoga. So when you use the word karma yoga to refer to physical activities as opposed to something else, you're actually misrepresenting the concept of karma yoga quite seriously. And so we have to really think about how we interpret the gyan, because if you interpret the gyan incorrectly, then that's negative karma. So you don't want to do that, because if you interpret the gyan incorrectly and you're the representative of Baba, then you cause a lot of harm to a lot of people. So that would be a problem. That would be negative karma. And then you have to look at your motivation. Why do you do what you do? So mostly everyone is functioning in what he calls body consciousness, which he equates with ego. So when we're not attentive, when we're not soul conscious, then the superiority or inferiority will come back, and the old ways will come back, and then that becomes negative karma. And so to be very attentive all the time is really good, but you will find it challenging because you want to be attentive, but other people around you may not be attentive. And so you have a mixed vibration. If you have everyone being attentive, then you have a very focused vibration of yoga while everything is going on. And so I think that one of the purposes of a center where all the people are Brahmins and all the people are practicing is to create that atmosphere where everyone is attentive about yoga, karma yoga, doing the right thing. So sometimes he gives us a direction that do not take personal service, right? And of course, there are many who do take personal service, and there are many who have to give personal service. And if you're doing something that's not quite right, you won't feel right about it. And so it puts you in a difficult situation because you're in the context of a gathering which is hierarchical in nature. And people desire to be in the top of the hierarchy because that's how a hierarchy works. And whoever's in the top of the hierarchy doesn't want anybody to be rising up, because then they will kind of come off the top. And so you tend to keep the hierarchy fixed. And then sometimes you can cause not exactly accurate karma to take place in that context, and people will feel uncomfortable. And this also corresponds to what I was mentioning earlier about the gap between the rich and the poor being very, very wide. And in any kingdom where the gap between the rich and the poor is not too wide, it tends to be sustainable. And there is good relationship between all the different levels of the hierarchy because the difference is not too much. And if the difference becomes very rigid and very large, then it creates tension. And the tension leads to conflict and war. So we have to be attentive on that. So this is not quite very easy Raj Yoga, but it is yoga in a context that's very challenging. The challenges are very subtle. And so you have to be very conscious of your conscience, conscious of your motivation. You're a benevolent person who is beneficial. And you have to do the right thing. You have to be right with yourself, right with everyone else. So that's very careful action. And you do your best, but it's not always very clear what's the right thing at the right time. But if you're really Jivan Mukta, then you can do the right thing at the right time because it corresponds with what you want. And freedom is to do what you want, when you want, how you want, if you want, and not if you don't want. So this convergence of correctness and freedom, when it's together, that's Jivan Mukti, I think.
So the question is, what does it mean, consciousness of intellect?
Consciousness of intellect. Where did you get that expression from?
In today's blessing, there was the words, consciousness of the intellect.
Let me see what we have here for consciousness of intellect. In the blessing. Okay. Nothing is visible except the consciousness of your intellect. Well, let's just take a quick look at the Hindi and see what it says there. Okay. It says, जैसे स्थूल organs दूर से अपना अनुभव कराती है, ऐसे आपकी तपस्या और त्याग की झलक is more than sparkle. Jhalak is a very strong light. दूर से ही सर्व को आकर्षित करे. सेवा धारी के साथ साथ त्यागी तपस्वी बनो, तब सेवा का प्रत्यक्ष फल दिखाई देगा. Tyagi, okay, tyagi, they have said tyagi is a renunciate, okay, tyagi. अर्थात कोई भी पुराने संकल्प व संस्कार दिखाई न दे. Tapasya Artat buddhi ki smriti. Ah, that's what they put as consciousness of the intellect. No, it's not. Buddhi ki smriti va drishti se सिवाय आत्मिक स्वरूप के और कुछ भी दिखाई न दे. Okay, so what it says here in Hindi is that if you are a tapasvi, it means that your awareness in your intellect, it's not conscious of the intellect. It means that in your comprehension, in your intelligence, you would be conscious of the spiritual form of a person, and that you would not see their body. You would be aware, you'd be conscious of, your perception. I think you have to change the word consciousness of intellect to perception. And then you would get it. What you are aware of, what you perceive is the soul, not the body. And I think this is a better way to put it, according to what Baba said in Hindi.
Perception, smriti is your
Smriti and drishti, yes, but that's the sentence before. The Atmic Swarup is and drishti is what you perceive. So one thing is to perceive visually, and the other is to perceive in terms of your consciousness. And so what you are conscious of in terms of your intelligence, you see, the word intellect is a problematical word. To use intellect as an English word for buddhi is not quite right. That's one problem. And then smriti is a word for consciousness in the sense of awareness, in the sense of perception, that you comprehend. It's about comprehension. So you have comprehension type of perception and you have visual type of perception. And so you will visually perceive and you will comprehend and perceive that this is a soul. So you don't have to have a vision of it, but you will see that is tapasya.
Can smriti be awakened awareness?
That's a, what do you call it, granola idea. It's a terminology used by the latest, greatest gurus, but it's not Baba's language. And it's misleading. That's terminology.
In other words, Jagrat Avastha, which is like awakened. Like you are Baba says like you have all these 5 forms and stuff. We know, but are we aware? Are we in that presence? That's smriti.
Yeah, but the thing is, the way people interpret that is something that's not actually spiritual. It's impressive, but not spiritual. Do you know what I mean? And so I try to find words that are not used by those people because they mean something different from what we mean in our language. And sometimes people mix these two forms of language and then the concepts get lost. So I try to avoid that, because otherwise people, it's very, very difficult for people in devotion to distinguish between devotion and gyan. Very difficult. Because they use the same word to mean two opposite things, and then they can't get it. And so my way of handling that is to keep words separate for separate concepts so that it's easier to distinguish. I was trying in the retreat that we did in LA to make it clear, because most of the people who were there were very much grounded in bhakti. And the bhakti interpretation of gyan is different from the jnani interpretation of gyan. And the way Dadi Janki used to teach us was very clear about distinguishing between the ideas about knowledge that come from Vedic India, bhakti, and then what Shiv Baba is saying. Because you see, Gyan and Bhakti are actually opposite of each other, but they're coexisting. And so difficult for people to distinguish between the two. And people who come into Gyan without a devotional background can see it more clearly because it's completely different, I mean, just take the word Gyan and any of the spiritual language that is used in religious scriptures and prayers and all. They use the same words, but they mean something different. And so if you say the word, the person will process the word according to their preconceptions. And that's very difficult to say that what you're thinking is not right. And they will say, what do you mean? Of course it's right. So if you use a different word, then they don't have that association with those words. Because the way the mind works is very much by association. And fortunately, language is so varied and vast that there are words in existence that, especially ones that people don't use very much, so that they haven't changed the interpretation from its original dictionary meaning. So whenever you use the word awakened, there's so many associations connected with that actually take you to a different set of concepts based in something Buddhistic. There were many people who started to use the word mindful for BKs. BKs would start teaching mindfulness, and I would say, mindfulness comes from Buddhism, and Buddhism does not have the same interpretation of spirituality as we have, because they don't believe in the soul and they don't believe in the mind. And when they say mindful, they mean attentive to karma, according to their description of the philosophy of karma. And it's not the same thing when we say do action in soul conscious. But the word mindful has been popularized by the mindfulness people. And just getting on that bandwagon is not really going to carry our aim and object forward, in my opinion, because it creates mixed bag. And many BKs do things in order to get the people to like them. And the problem with Gyan is it's so against the conventional way of thinking that people don't like it. And so you think, well, I have to give gyan to these people, and I want them to take this gyan so that I can fulfill my mandate to give people gyan. And then you can adjust it so that they like what you say, but they don't understand what you are supposed to be communicating to them. So it ends up counterproductive. But it's understandable, you know. So it's not such an easy thing to deal with.
So there is a question yesterday in Baba's Murli. It said that after destruction, there will be 900,000 left. Could you clarify that?
He did say that, but then he didn't say how much time after destruction. And when he was talking about the details of the actual, like immediately after the bombs and earthquakes and volcanoes and floods and fires, he never really said exactly how many survivors there will be. But the 900,000 generally refers to the population at the time when Lakshmi and Narayan come to the throne. And so there will be some people who arrive after the destruction. There will be some people who leave after the destruction, because there will be some scientists who survive, but they will be in spaceships for the destruction. And there will be some military who survive. There'll be some BKs who survive. There'll be some advanced party, some what he calls the new people. And they're like almost deities or something like that. And then there'll be some general public who survive. And so the people who are not belonging to the beginning of the golden age, they will have to leave their body and go back to the soul world a little bit afterwards. And then 900,000 is the population of the beginning of the golden age. Like that. But you know, when Baba is speaking the Murli, he's assuming that everybody knows everything. So sometimes he will say statements that he will say, you know what I'm talking about, you know. So after the destruction, 900,000 in that sense.
Explain how Shiv Baba is the oldest.
How he's the oldest? Yes. Well, he said he's the oldest because he's the first one who comes. But of course, everybody's already here. But from the point of view of the cycle, his arrival marks the confluence age beginning. And so this word, Ek Omkar, means I am the beginning, right? You told me that. And so that makes him the oldest. He's the first. He comes first, then Brahma Baba, and then everybody else. And so we get to be called the ancestors, right?
Now here is a question. So many people do things like pedophiles and worst activities. So why BKs are the lowest ones?
It's a matter of looking at the extreme, and it's also not BKs who are the lowest ones. It's the souls who went to the highest position in the golden age, and that civilization was the highest of all civilizations. And the state of India at this time, there's a lot going on that you're never going to hear about, but it's not very good. A lot. And what you hear about in the media is not representative of what goes on. So, you know, you can say there's all these things going on, and you don't even know what goes on in the minds and karma of all BKs. It can go very high and very low. And, BKs, once you become a BK, then you change your karma and you start to become soul conscious and you become a Brahmin. But before a Brahmin, some BKs may have gone pretty low, and that may get in the way of their Brahmin practice, but they have to deal with it. Om Shanti.